Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A with Ryushi Lindsay. Ryushi, thank you very much for coming and for allowing us to see your films just now.
Thank you for thanks for having me and thanks for showing my work. It's such a pleasure, such a privilege to be able to show my work.
It's been great. So I'm just going to explain a little bit of how we came across and how we decided to show our work, and then I'll ask some questions about KOKUTAI and Idol, which we just shown. So we obviously had an application for the BFI films for their Japan film season, and we started looking around for directors that we wanted to work with and show their work. And you came across my radar through a kind of mutual acquaintance that we have, and then we just started talking. And originally the plan was for you to come to Bedford, but then you're not in the country at the moment and not really able to come. So we then found this way of having the work done and shown and having you still present, but whilst being away, which I think works, and hopefully it will work well after this. So let's talk a little bit about KOKUTAI, which was the first film that we shown. How did that come about? How did that idea for making that film came around?
So I just for a bit of background, I grew up in the UK. My mum's Japanese, my dad's British. So I spent many summer holidays in Japan before moving here a few years ago, and I now spend time between Britain and Japan. But so I had always been aware of high school baseball in Japan, and every summer when I'd come here, my grandmother would have it on the TV, and it is this national spectacle that I mean, it's a bit of a generalization to say everyone tunes into it, but it is like the big sporting event of the year. And there's two tournaments, spring and summer. And I think I was just talking with a friend about films I wanted to make, and it sort of just came up in conversation as something that I was interested in, particularly of course, in the high school baseball tournaments as this spectacle, and it's developed organically from there.
And when did obviously you have the idea. Which tournament was the one that you filmed? Was it spring or
this
summer?
was actually spring. It happened to be at the time I had a full-time job, and it happened to be when I could get time off. And so I went and shot it in the spring over 3 days, I think. And it was just me and they had rented a couple of cameras and went and shot it all myself, and edited myself. And then a friend introduced me to Andy, my brilliant composer, who put together this incredible score, and I think that really brought the film together. I think he's the one with all the talent.
Well, I'm sure you have some talent as well, from what we saw. And how was obviously the process of going into this big national, I assume it's televised as well, tournament, and say, hi, this is who I am, this is what I want to do? Or did you just kind of set the cameras up and filmed, not really asking for permission?
Yeah, it's I shot it all guerrilla without permits. I'd been sort of worrying about permits and how to go about permits at the time. I hadn't been in Japan long, and I wasn't like now, like I'm processing permits all the time, but at the time I wasn't like super familiar with the system and how to go about it. But I had gone to a screening of the Adachi Masao film, aka Serial Killer. And Adachi, the director, was there for a Q&A, and someone had asked him about how he had shot that film, how they had shot that film, and he said that the crew shot without permits, and that we should stop worrying. This is in the 70s, I think, but we should stop worrying so much about permits and just go out and make films. And so that gave me a lot of I felt really encouraged by that. I was like, okay, I can take that approach here in Japan as well.
And was it, once you started showing it in festivals and screening, and was there any kind of what was people's responses to that idea? If you shared it, that it's been kind of guerrilla filmed in this big event, how was that idea kind of came about for people?
I mean, the film has broadly flown under the radar here in Japan. It's had a lot more interest overseas. So really, I can only sort of comment in terms of what people have told me at overseas festivals, and also friends who live in Japan. But I guess, I mean, I'm aware of like the ethics of documentary filmmaking, and I'm aware that it's like, it's possible to debate it at length, and without sort of, I've talked about this in the past, so I think if people want to hear my thoughts about it, I think there are some interviews around there where I talk about it in a lot of detail. But my conclusion is that no filmmaking is ethical. So, either go out and make a potentially problematic film, or don't make films. That's my hot take of the day.
Yeah. So let that sit with people now. And how, when you you came about to decide to make this film, and it seemed like, from what you told me and from what we saw, that it's quite revealing of kind of this imperialist, still almost fascist kind of way of doing things. There's a lot of imagery, I think, that you present, and that is in the film, that kind of harks back to stuff that happened in Europe, kind of 40s and 30s, and a little bit kind of starting to happen again now, which is weird. So was that a very conscious decision, or was that something that, it kind of is just present and it's just what it is, and so you couldn't really like avoid it, or like, how was that? What was that decision as a filmmaker to focus on that, or not?
Yeah, I mean, so I've had questions about how much that is how it is, and how much is sort of my manipulation of what I shot, using slow motion, using music, and through editing, like how much is my manipulation of the reality. But this is my experience, but being there, it's actually so much more, like the scale of the spectacle, and sort of the level of, there's a tangible excitement in the air, which I think, there's like sport is this weird thing that unites people together in this like mad sort of, I'm struggling to find the words. It's sport historically has been a tool to sort of unite people in good ways, but potentially in historically in bad ways as well. We look at 1936 Olympics, and it's very easy to sort of unite people around either an idea of nation, or sort of just generally like a less a less specific idea, but generally like bringing people together and getting them all excited in one place, and letting them sort of, it's hard to sort of be at an exciting sports event and think critically about why there and why it's so exciting. And so the question was, how much is I guess is my work, and how my manipulation, how much is just filmed events? Hard to say, but I think it's I obviously made some very conscious choices. And I wanted to present this spectacle, but also I tried to undermine it in some ways. And I don't know how successful that was. Some people have suggested that the film is sort of a celebration of these aesthetics, which is interesting.
That is an interesting read.
So I leave that up to you and the audience to figure out.
Yeah, because it felt it felt almost like there are so many events that are kind of in that scale of you look at stuff like the Super Bowl and things like that, which is the actual sporting event isn't really the main attraction, which is weird. Like it's just everything around it is it's the big thing. And I suppose like you can talk about the Olympics, which has just been of the opening ceremony, the kind of coming together, and then the events kind of happen, and no one really cares about them anymore, which is very strange. But yeah, great. And that you filmed that in when did you film?
Oh, well, it was a while ago now. It must have been 2018, I
2018.
think. Yeah.
Nice. Great. So then we kind of make our jump to Idol, which is the more recent one, as far as I'm aware. So when did you decide? When did that idea come about? When did you write it? And what were you trying to explore with that film?
So actually we shot Idol in 2018 as well, I think. I'm very unprolific. But Idol took a longer time to complete, obviously, because it's more, it required a lot more post.
Mm-hmm.
And then it did the festival circuit in 2020, and I think we still might have a couple more dates coming up, hopefully, fingers crossed. It started as I'd read an article about a slightly sensationalist article about the child idol industry, and it sort of captured my imagination. This idea of like these sort of sweaty, underground clubs where there's just like these 8-year-old girls dancing for an audience of middle-aged salarymen. And yeah, I think I wanted to. I'm trying to remember where I was in the world and what I mean I was in Japan, but what I wanted to do is just I just wanted to tell a story about. I like stories about sort of normal people who end up doing abnormal things and who sort of find their situation spiraling out of control, and I just wrote the film that I wanted to see.
And how was then that process? It takes a little bit about the process of independent filmmaking, I suppose, of then again finding the actors, finding the places, and how was then how long did it take you to complete the whole thing? How was how long did you shoot for?
So I was really fortunate to meet our executive producer, Chris Combs, just socially. I think I met him in a bar and I was talking about what I was doing. He was talking about what he was doing. And I mentioned, I think just we were just chatting about film and I mentioned this idea. And I was, incredibly fortunate that he put up the budget. We shot for 3 days, I think. Locations was actually pretty straightforward. All the sort of backstage stuff we shot in a real this giant theater, like owned by like a publicly owned theater. Sort of one of the amazing things about Japan is that not every city, but loads of cities will have like a gigantic like 500-seater auditorium that is like owned by the community. And so we rented that out, and they were really confused that we didn't want to use the auditorium.
You just want to use backstage.
And casting, a friend introduced me to Ono-san, a great casting director who happened to know. He has contacts with all the cast, and we held auditions for some of the roles. Some of the roles we cast because we knew that was who we wanted for them, and it was just all a really great experience. It was, I think, the smoothest shoot I've ever been on. Everything somehow worked out, and in terms of how long it took to complete, then we were probably in post for about a year because I was sort of moving back and forth across the world, and it took films take time to complete,
Absolutely. One of the things that I found really interesting about Idol specifically is that it looked like you used handheld for the majority of the time. Was that also a conscious decision because you wanted to have the kind of shakiness of the camera, or was not a decision? It was just kind of what happened. How was that?
So in talking with Matt D'Souza, our cinematographer, we sort of spent a lot of time thinking about how we wanted to shoot it. And very early on, I think we landed on handheld. I liked that that European new wave and that British social realist aesthetic. And I'd been reading Andre Bazin's What is Cinema, so I was very drawn to wider framing as well. And I think we wanted the film to slot into a particular aesthetic and a particular filmmaking tradition, and that influenced all our formal choices, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of kind of long shots. So when you have that first kind of meeting of going back and forth into the corridor, I found that incredible and amazing. And also it's just so simple, but it works so well, particularly with kind of where those characters are in this kind of introduction. I really enjoyed that, and it was great. And
I think that's, to interrupt you, that's down to our brilliant cast who could nail it, every take. And it was it's now I look at it and I wonder if it's a bit too showy, but we're all very, very very pleased with what we got with that show.
And there seemed to be quite a lot of reliance on natural light, if I'm mistaken.
I'm glad it looks like that.
I know that making something look natural on camera is very hard because of a lot of lights, but yeah, I thought, particularly in that first scene when they come into the apartment and, you have her lighting up the little shrine area. Obviously, I know that like everything else is probably illuminated by a billion lights, but it's fascinating.
That we shot in the middle of the day.
Really?
We blacked out the windows and
wow,
really enlarging department.
Magic of filmmaking. Great. So I think that's kind of like what I wanted to touch, just kind of those things. And I suppose now I want to ask you if you can kind of open the curtain a little bit of what you're doing next and what you've been working on.
So I've got various projects on the go at the moment, but quickly hoping to shoot my next fiction short this autumn, and I'm developing probably a short doc about Japanese dogs.
Nice.
In particular, the I think it's called the Society for the Preservation of the Japanese Dog. And you can probably imagine, sort of looking at my work, and you can probably imagine what sort of film it might be.
Absolutely. And did you? I know that you're potentially looking at making Idol into a feature film. Is that a plan, idea?
It's a long-term plan. Yeah. Yes, with the script is it's been dormant a bit because I've been having actually a really busy year work, which I'm quite pleased about despite the circumstances. So, but it's definitely like a thing we want to come back to. We, want to get the same crew and get the same same cast as possible. Obviously, the kids are older now, so we've got to see what's possible. But it's something I want to do for sure. Yeah.
It's going to be very exciting. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Well, we'll see. We'll see
when it comes out. When it comes out.
In coming years. It's a long process to get a film made. So.
Absolutely.
Not even at the starting line.
Yeah. Well, Thank you very much, Rishi. I think we are very, very happy and glad that you were jumping in on the project with us. And I'm very happy that we got to show your work. And where can people find you, and where can people continue to follow your work, and how can we keep connected?
Thank you. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for showing my work, and thanks so much for the opportunity to talk about what I've been doing as well. It's especially in front of an audience. It's you know, over the past year, and you know, I guess we're approaching 2 years now. I think maybe we've had I think only 2 or 3 live in-person audiences have seen my work, because everything we completed, both films were sort of hitting the festival circuit just as the pandemic was hitting. So it's so brilliant to be able to show the work in front of a real life audience. No, I wish I could have been there. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ryushi Lindsay, and yeah, I think that's, if you Google my name, I'm blessed or cursed to have an easily very Googleable name. I show up pretty, I think, at the top.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Rishi, for coming, and thank you all for coming to our 3rd screening of our Japan film season, and we will see you next week, hopefully. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I'm currently in a different country as well, so we're both in Bedford, but not in Bedford at the moment, which is interesting. But yeah, we will see you soon.